Hi everyone, my name is Adi. Today we're going to be featuring the team that I used to get top 6 in the North American Players Cup. The Players Cup is a 256-player double elimination tournament hosted by the Pokemon Company International, with invites extended to the top players from the May International Challenge. We're going to have 8 of the top 16 players from the North American Players Cup come onto this channel to talk about their teams, so make sure to subscribe to not miss a single one. The team that I used was conceived the night before the Rose Tower Clash, which was the first big Series 5 tournament. My friend Rajan Bal and I decided we were going to enter, and the night before the tournament at around 11 p.m. And we spent the next 5 hours building a team. At 4 a.m., with roughly 3 games of testing, we called it a night. As you can see from this graphic, I managed to get top 8 with the team, losing to eventual winner Bingji Wang and his incredible Cinderace team. Another player used that exact same team to get top 16 at the Players' Cup, and we're going to be featuring him on the channel real soon, so make sure to check that out too. So this team was based around Comfey. Comfey was reintroduced to the metagame in the Isle of Armor, and we wanted to use it because of its really cool ability called Triage. Triage gives all of its healing moves a +3 priority, including damaging moves like Draining Kiss and Giga Drain, which meant that it has the same priority as Fake Out, and because Comfey has a pretty high base speed, it actually gets to go before Fake Out, and also because it gets to go before Follow Me, Rage Powder, and any other form of redirection. This meant that we could proc a weakness policy before our opponent could redirect the attack away, as well as click our healing moves without worrying about attacks like Fake Out to interrupt it. This seemed really strong, and the original team had it next to a weakness policy Dragapult. We also tested weakness policy Lapras like we've seen a lot on the ladder, and as well as on numerous YouTube channels that have featured it recently, and we decided that Lapras wasn't really the best Pokemon to abuse that. But we did want to use a Lapras on the team, and the other reason that Comfey was so good was because of the move Floral Healing, which is essentially Heal Pulse. It gives 50% health back to his partner Pokemon. However, that is buffed to 66% health in grassy terrain. And so the original core that we had was Comfey, Rillaboom, and Lapras. Lapras would set up screens with its Gigantamax form and Gmax Resonance, which would make our Pokemon very difficult to kill. And as you start to chip down at them and they got low on health, Comfey could come in, click Floral Healing, and heal them back up. And you essentially had to live for 8 turns of screens while all of our Pokemon would keep going back to full health. It's really annoying to deal with, and we found it really, really good. We also wanted to exploit the fact that we could just proc our own weakness policy, and so originally we had a Dragapult on the team to do that. However, we decided that the Dragapult mode, after testing it in this Rose Tower tournament, I only actually had to proc my own weakness policy once the entire tournament on my run to top 8. And that it did come into play in my top 16 match, but that was the only time it came into play. So we decided that it really wasn't that strong. It didn't really beat the things that we needed it to beat, and so we had to reconsider the team. And so we had 2 weeks before we had to lock in our teams for the Players' Cup, and we knew we had a Comfey, a Rillaboom, a Lapras, and an Incineroar, because for me and Rajan, they both felt really, really strong. So this team was built by myself, Rajan Bal, and Alex Underhill. Justin Burns also used it in the Players' Cup, and we finished, I got top 6, Rajan got top 48, Justin got top 32, and Alex got top 24. We're actually all going to be on the Hyper Voice, which is coming out real soon. That is my friend Alex's podcast, and we're all going to talk about our collective experiences a little bit more, so make sure to check that out as well. But for now, I'm going to go in depth into the team. So the Comfey had a Focus Sash because we didn't have a Focus Sash in any of the other Pokemon, and Focus Sash is a great item. It did get one-shot by a lot of things, despite like surprisingly decent bulk. The speed stat, we needed to outspeed Amoonguss at +1 speed because we were afraid of timid Amoonguss. We didn't have great ways to deal with people who wanted to spam sleep. And so we ran Safeguard on it as the essential flex move. We needed Protect on it. I know people have been dropping Protect, but because one of our endgames with Lapras involves Perish Song, we really needed Protect on as many mons as possible. The other thing to note is that the Players' Cup had open team sheets, which meant that people knew exactly which moves you had on which Pokemon, as well as the abilities and the items. And so we felt like having Protect in a tournament like this was really important, because if you didn't have Protect, your opponents knew that they could freely target down that slot without having to worry about the attacks going to waste. And so we thought Protect was really valuable, and we put Protect on as many Pokemon as possible. The moveset was Draining Kiss, which procced our weakness policy and did a lot of damage. We had Giga Drain on for a long time as well. So Giga Drain actually has base 75 power, so it is more powerful than Draining Kiss in grassy terrain. it is equally powerful as Draining Kiss because Draining Kiss is only 50 base power. So with the stab boost, it's 75. Giga Drain is also 75, so it's equally powerful outside of grassy terrain. However, Draining Kiss was really, really effective, not only at proccing our weakness policy, but also at doing about 50% damage to a lot of Dragapult. And that made our Dragapult matchup really good. It also did a lot of damage to fighting type Cinderace, and Cinderace normally wants to click fighting moves so that it can boost its attack stat, especially against our team that really wants to bulk up our defenses. If they don't click Max Knuckle, they aren't doing enough damage to our team. And so Draining Kiss just does chunks Cinderace, chunks Dragapult, the two biggest offensive threats in the metagame right now, in my opinion. And so that was really valuable. Floral Healing was a must to heal all of our Pokemon up. If you're doing 70% damage to a Pokemon on this team, you're basically doing no damage because it just doesn't matter. The only Pokemon that actually takes damage is Comfey because everything else just gets healed up by Comfey. So Safeguard, of course, helped with the Mungus, and Protect was necessary. The V-Spread speed fast Amoonguss, which hits 136 speed. We also wanted to just make sure that we outsped all the Rillaboom, and so we outsped Adamant Rillaboom if they went max speed Adamant, so that we could go before they clicked Fake Out all the time. We didn't want to have to worry about that at all. That's the Comfey. Comfey was really the MVP of this team. It does so much stuff. And then we had the Rillaboom. Rillaboom, we decided that the problem with the Lapras Incineroar Rillaboom Comfey mode is that it really doesn't do enough damage. It doesn't have a high damage output Pokemon. I understand why people are putting the weakness policy on the Lapras for that reason, except you need all 8 turns of screens. You really do. And so we put a Rose Incense or a Miracle Seed on Rillaboom. We used the incenses because people might not know what they did. And so we wanted to do as much damage as possible. Rillaboom was one of the big damage dealers on the team. The defense investment, it was EV to live, I believe, a +3 Terrakion max Rockfall as often as possible because our team was a little weak to beat up and Terrakion. And this gave us an out if we wanted to Dynamax our Rillaboom and switch in the Incineroar to give it an Intimidate and then KO it with our G-Max Grass move. I'm forgetting what that's called. G-Max Drum Beating, something like that. So that's what the defense EVs were for. It meant that we didn't have as much special defense, and so it didn't get to absorb attacks nearly as well from things like Primarina. But at the end of the day, that was just a trade that we had to make. The Grassy Glide is so powerful. It was really the only attack move that we needed, and U-Turn let us pivot really effectively and just take hits and stall out Dynamax turns, and also damage other Rillaboom, which came into play because it meant that we could go into Rillaboom versus Rillaboom endgames. Then we had, and of course we did need Protect, again, because we needed it for Perish endgames. A lot of times you have 3 Pokemon, like Comfey, Rillaboom, Lapras, 3 of the 4, along with Incineroar, that was the core of the team. And so you needed Protect to be able to stall out Perish Song. Once you got your opponent Pokemon down to 2, a lot of times you couldn't KO the last 2 Pokemon. And so you just needed to be able to conserve your Lapras and click Perish Song to end the game. The Lapras had a Light Clay, as I mentioned earlier. It had Shell Armor because we needed to prevent critical hits that would go through our screens. I thought Shell Armor was too good. You couldn't run Water Absorb because you just didn't take any damage from water attacks anyway. The moveset is pretty standard. The speed was once again because we were scared of Fast Amoonguss, as well as the fact that a lot of Incineroar liked to run 91 speed, again, to outspeed Fast Amoonguss. And so we wanted to speed creep that. Our Incineroar was 91 speed, and we don't want our Pokemon to speed tie. I'm forgetting exactly what the EVs did. I believe that it was just as much bulk as possible while also hitting a jump number. If you're not familiar with what that means, if you're running a nature that's boosting one stat, it goes up by 1 point every additional ADVs that you give it, and then every 80 EVs it'll go up 2. And so it's just a little more efficient to hit that number rather than hitting any other number because it's a 10% boost and the 10% rounds down. And so that's just how EVs work. It's a whole other topic, but we decided that we wanted to hit the jump number and then hit as much bulk as possible just for the rest of the stats, which is why we dumped the rest in HP. I think the moveset's pretty standard. Then we had the Incineroar. We gave the Incineroar an Assault Vest because we wanted to live attacks as much as possible, and then we can heal it back up with Comfey. And so while a Berry was normally the standard choice for Incineroar, it didn't matter if our Incineroar was at 20% or at 60% with a Figgy Berry, for example, because if it was at 20%, we just heal it back up. And so just taking less damage in general and living attacks is really important, hence the Assault Vest. The moveset, again, these are pretty standard moves. For Assault Vest Incineroar, I did miss Parting Shot a lot over the course of the tournament, but we couldn't run it because of the Assault Vest, of course. and U-turn, we need, pivoting moves are just so important. The choice of Dark Move is something that we did deliberate on a lot, but we decided that, again, Lapras, Rillaboom, Comfey, Incin just lacks damage output, and so running Darkest Lariat meant that we could do as much damage as possible. If we needed Incineroar to do damage, it did come up. It also allows you to ignore defense boosts if your opponent decides they're going to boost their defenses for whatever reason. And yeah, so Incineroar was just a very important part of this core, mitigating physical damage, allowing you to pivot very effectively. It created the Firewater Grass core with Rillaboom, Lapras, and Incineroar that allows you to pivot and avoid damage and, of course, heal back up from the chip damage that you are taking, and slowly chip away at your opponents with the U-turns from Rillaboom and Incineroar, plus whatever damage you can do with the Comfey and Lapras. So essentially, and then the EVs for this, we wanted to live a Cinderace High Jump Kick as often as possible. We wanted to KO Rillaboom with Flare Blitz as often as possible. And we also had a really shaky Porygon Z matchup. I didn't end up actually facing a Porygon Z over the course of this tournament, but we live a Max Strike or a Hyper Beam. They have the same base power from Porygon Z, I think 75% of the time with the CV spread, which was about as good as possible. So it was really a compromise. I think we lived all of the attacks we wanted to live 75% of the time, and we did the damage that we needed to do. And of course, we also outspent Turbo and Mungus because we were really, really scared of that. In testing, that was a really big problem for this team. It's all well and good if you can KO all the opposing Pokemon, but you can't KO the opposing Pokemon when all of your Pokemon are asleep. So we might have actually had a little bit of overkill with Safeguard on Comfey. We could have considered not doing that and changing it up a little bit. But overall, I don't really regret the speed. I don't think that Incineroar needed any more bulk. None of the rolls actually came up for me during my run. And so the cool part of this mode, the really, really useful part of this mode is that you don't need speed control. As you can see, there is no form of speed control on this team. And that's because Comfey has priority Draining Kiss, Rillaboom has priority Grassy Glide, and all the other Pokemon are just really, really bulky. And so it's fine. Your opponent can waste a turn setting up Tailwind or waste a turn setting up Trick Room. We don't care. We were planning on taking the attacks they were throwing at it anyway, and if they're spending a turn not doing damage or max or boosting their stats, that's a win for us because that's another turn that we can chip away at them. And then once they get weak enough, we can always KO them with a priority move. So that's the core of the team. The things that we found that we were really weak to, the first thing that we found that we were weak to was Sun. Sun just has a powerful special attackers. They have Venusaur with Gmax Vine Lash, which essentially stops our Lapras from being able to set up because Gmax Vine Lash plus another attack, or sometimes even Gmax Vine Lash on its own, can knock out Lapras. And so we couldn't comfortably max our Lapras into a Venusaur because it was probably just going down. And if we can't live attacks, we can't really execute our strategy, as well as the powerful fire type moves that they're going to be throwing out there to damage the Rillaboom if we try to use Rillaboom to switch in. We needed something that could deal with Sun. And we decided that Pokemon was Goodra. There are very few Pokemon that match up with Sun better than Goodra specifically because of its massively high special defense stat and its resistance to basically all of the attacks the Sun wants to throw out there. And of course, because we have a priority Fairy move on the team, we could really safely give it a weakness policy. Of course, Sap Zipper makes it immune to grass-type attacks. And then the 4 moves was something that we strongly considered. We debated a lot. We really wanted to fit Protect on. We really wanted to fit Thunderbolt on so that we weren't walled by most water types like Primarina. But we decided that at the end of the day, what we needed Goodra to do was beat Sun. We wanted to beat 2 matchups with Goodra, in fact. We wanted to beat Sun and we wanted to beat Colossal. And of course, Colossal ended up proving to be very, very good in this meta. A lot of people didn't really account for it. And we saw Santi actually manage to get top 4 in this tournament through winner's bracket, going undefeated. I think he dropped 1 game the entire tournament using his Colossal team just because Colossal was such a strong pick. And so we put Hydro Pump on the Goodra partially to deal with Colossal, partially because a lot of Sun teams had a Tyranitar on the team at this point, and so we wanted to be able to deal with their Tyranitar as well. The moves were Draco Meteor. We thought about Dragon Pulse, but we decided that we were never bringing Goodra and not maxing it, and so we just wanted to do as much damage as possible while it was maxed. We had Blizzard because people would lead Venusaur Togekiss, and that was one of the scarier leads. And we wanted a move that we could safely click into Venusaur that would also hit an OHKO the Togekiss should they click Follow Me. And so Blizzard was that move. And it also turned out that Blizzard was a really valuable move to click even while not Dynamax, even if we didn't have Hail Up, because it just meant generic spread damage. It had a chance of getting some good luck with freezes. And we just got to, spam damage out and then heal up if they were targeting the wrong slot. Heal up our Goodra with Floral Healing. And that actually came up a lot. Hydro Pump was for Tyranitar and Colossal. Flamethrower was probably the most droppable move, but we didn't want to lose to Corviknight and we didn't want to lose to Ferrothorn, and this team, as you can see, has very few ways to hit Ferrothorn. Corviknight was less of an issue because we could hit it with Lapras and we could hit it with Magnezone and we could win Perish Trap endgames. Not Perish Trap, but just Perish endgames against Corviknight if they weren't doing enough damage, if they weren't the body press set, which people were moving away from in the Isle of Armor metagame. But we didn't want to lose to that. We didn't want to lose to all the steel types, and so Flamethrower proved to be important, even if it didn't come up nearly as much. It was also just another way to hit the Venusaurs and the Pokemon in Sun, because they would always put Sun up, and so we could just do more damage with our Flamethrowers. So yeah, that's the Goodra. The spread is pretty straightforward. We just wanted as much special attack as possible. I'm forgetting what exactly the defense EVs live off the top of my head, but yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head what the defense EVs were meant to live. Yeah, so Goodra was a very, very important Pokemon. It's not a great Pokemon, but it's very, very good in 2 specific matchups, and we needed to patch those 2 specific matchups, so we ran a Goodra. It's really as simple as that. Oh, also, one more thing. A lot of people seem to be running physical Sap Sipper Goodra without a weakness policy on the ladder, and in trying to just self-proc with Giga Drain. That is a bad set. Don't do that, because Goodra does not have a high enough attack stat to do damage at just +1 and do enough damage to win you games. Also, you're wasting a turn just to get to +1, which isn't very good. Wasting a turn to get to +2 with Comfey is really good. Wasting a turn to get to +1 is mediocre, especially when they can just intimidate you. In an open team sheet format, I would never consider that. We did consider Power Whip on the Goodra as like 1 attack and then going mixed, because we didn't really need the speed stat. And that would allow you to hit Tyranitar in a different way, hit water types in a different way. But going full physical Goodra is just really bad. Don't do that. Finally, we had Magnezone. This Grassy Seed set, was made by Raghav, also known as Smoothie Man, and he actually also ended up getting top 12 in this tournament, and we're going to have his team report coming up real soon as well. This Magnezone is really, really freaking good. It's just like actually just runs through a lot of teams. We found that a lot of teams were either going mostly physical or mostly special. We needed answers to Porygon Z and Toxtricity, and usually everything else on teams like the Toxtricity team that, of course, Big G used to win the Rose Tower Clash was almost all physical attackers other than the Chandelure and Toxtricity. A lot of Cinderace teams were using it. We needed answers to it. Magnezone just takes physical attacks so well. Even if it's a ground type attack, once you get to +2 defense and you like get an Intimidate off, they aren't doing damage with it. They just really aren't. You can just take them and you can heal up with Comfey. It's really, really hard for specific teams to deal with. And teams that really wanted to boost their attack stat or just power through with physical attacks usually struggled with our Magnezone mode. So we could just click. Basically, it was really simple. You get the Grassy Seed boost, you click Max Steel Spike 3 times, and then you KO everything with Body Press. The other thing that we struggled with a lot was Porygon 2, because Porygon 2 could just really take our attacks and heal back up consistently. And Magnezone, once it gets some Steel Spikes off, just body presses the Porygon 2 and does too much damage to it for it to heal off. We didn't need the special attack investment. We decided that we wanted as much defense as possible, because every point in defense was not only a point in defense, but also a point in attack, essentially, because we were clicking body press while not Dynamaxed. And we went modest because we wanted damage. Analytic, people have been running Sturdy. Sure, Sturdy is a useful ability. Analytic is just so good. It's essentially a Life Orb boost if you're going last, which is why we ran min speed. So we just didn't want to go before anything else, and we wanted to get that 30% damage boost, which meant that even with no special attack investment and just a modest nature, you were just OHKOing so many things. It was actually crazy how much damage Magnezone would do. People would be forced to click Parting Shot into it early in the game so that they didn't run through their team while Dynamax, but that only is effective for 2 more turns or 1 more turn, because then you get to click Body Press and it ignores Parting Shot or Snarl or any other sort of special attack mitigation. Magnezone was really clutch. The special defense investment, I believe, was to live an attack from Max Primarina. It might have been a Porygon Z Max Hyper Beam at -1 special defense. Actually, no, that just OHKOs. But it was something very specific that never actually came up. We didn't think that we needed the special attack investment. It really just wasn't important. And so the special defense investment was where we put the dump. This set, oh my god, this set is just absolutely phenomenal. Raghav's going to talk a little bit more about how he came up with the set. His team report, he used the exact same team, the exact same Pokemon on his team. And so I'm really excited to hear from him about how he used that. So this is the team. you almost always bring Comfey, Rillaboom, Incineroar, and then you pick one of Lapras, Goodra, or Magnezone, whichever one feels like it's most effective against the opposing team. If it's Comfey, Lapras, Rillaboom, Incineroar, the Lapras mode is essentially take 2 KOs, don't take much damage, and then click Perish Song. Or you could take all 4 KOs sometimes, depending on the situation, but a lot of times you were only able to take 2. The Goodra mode is just proc your weakness policy and start KOing things. And then, of course, Magnezone mode is also proc the Grassy Seeds and start KOing things. You can bring Magnezone in the back. I did do that in one of my sets that I'll talk about a little later, but Magnezone overall was just a really, really strong threat, even if you didn't have to Dynamax it, just a +1 defense against some teams. The other 2 Pokemon, Lapras and Goodra, you had to Dynamax. So normally, you would bring Rillaboom, Comfey, and Incineroar in one of those Pokemon. And so, in that sense, it was kind of an easy team to use because you really just didn't need to pick your Dynamax target, lead it, do the thing it was meant to do, and win games. So, with that being said, I'm going to go over the rounds that I played in the Players' Cup. Overall, I had a 6-2 record, and I actually managed to get a round 1 bye because of my perfectly mediocre record in the International Challenge. I finished as I think it was like the 120th seed, maybe a little better than that. And because they didn't give buys to some people obviously just didn't sign up for the tournament or didn't show up. And so there were a bunch of no-shows. I think there were like 40 of them. And I was one of the lucky 40 people who happened to be matched up against a no-show rather than giving the no-shows to the top 40 players. And so that meant that I had a round 1 bye. Going into round 2, I faced Logan Wadul, also known as Awesome Aggie. And this was the team he was using. He had a Colossal mode and as well as a coaching mode with his Cobalion to coach one of his Pokemon, probably Gyarados. And then he also, he didn't actually have Beat Up on the team. And so that was really convenient because beating up a Cobalion was something that was really threatening to me. But I still didn't really have a safe lead into both the Colossal and the coaching Gyarados mode. So game 1, I decided, okay, he's going to lead I thought that Goodra was somewhat consistent, even though it would take a lot of damage from a +1 bounce. And so I decided, okay, we're going to lead Goodra at game 1. And he just didn't see that I had Hydro Pump on the team sheet, or maybe he just didn't expect me to click it. But I just clicked Max Geyser into the Colossal turn 1 and KO'd it and won the game really easily. Game 2, I said, okay, well, he's not bringing Colossal. He just saw that I have a really, really hard counter to Colossal. And so he brought his Cobalion Gyarados mode, and I led my Magnezone, and of course, because I had a Magnezone, his Gyarados was heavily threatened, even with the Raichu on his team. But I got to click Steel Spike a bunch of times and kind of run through that. So I just kind of won the lead roulette, really, and that was that. And I think I could have won even if I didn't win the lead roulette, potentially, but it wouldn't have been easy. So round 2, I faced L. I'm not sure who this is, but he had a very, very cool team. He had a Marowak, he had an Umbreon. It's very interesting choices, and the team was really bulky, and I didn't have great ways to do enough damage to it. That was the main issue, is that he didn't have ways to damage me. Like, if I went Lapras, Talonflame doesn't do damage. It just doesn't. It hits the Rillaboom, and that's about it. But once Intimidated, once with Veils up, it's not KOing anything. The Togekiss was a little scary, but didn't have Heat Wave, which was the scary move for me because of the Magnezone. The Primarina does damage, except not against the Lapras. And the Marowak does damage, but not against the Lapras. So I sat here and I thought, wow, I just have to last longer than him. This is going to be a long, drawn-out game. He's going to be able to click Snarl a bunch of times. He's going to click Yawn a bunch of times. He's going to live any attack that I throw into the Porygon 2 and just recover it off. I have to slowly take 2 KOs and perish endgame him. So that's what happened. Game 1, I did my Lapras stuff, healed off all the damage he did to me, and eventually managed to click Perish Song and was about to win the game. I had a Lapras that I'd switched out and back in, so it was not affected by Perish Song. That could click Protect on the last turn of Perish. He had 2 Pokemon left that were both going to go down to Perish, and the overall game time ran out. He managed to sell up the clock, and he won because he had an extra Pokemon. Game 2, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I just did Lapras stuff again, and this time I played a little better, I guess, or played a little faster maybe. I managed to win the game that way. And going into game 3, I said, you know what? He's not going to bring the Marowak. He saw me bring Lapras twice. Marowak is really bad into Lapras. It doesn't do anything into Lapras and doesn't do anything into Rillaboom. So he's not going to bring it. And I went to Magnezone because Magnezone does really run through the rest of the team. Body presses a lot against all the other Pokemon. And he didn't bring Marowak, thankfully. He actually maxed the Umbreon in that game to try to get Spadef drops onto Magnezone so that he could eventually do enough damage. He didn't. Magnezone just ran through the team because he didn't have the one counter to the Marowak, and got into so that was round 3 of winners, so I was into top 64. Now, one thing that was interesting about this tournament is that it was held over 3 weeks, and so we did have a week in between that winners round 3 and winners round 4. And so I had a week to prepare for my opponent. I knew his team. It's actually my good friend Sebastian Biage, also known as Sebi. When I lived in Canada, we played each other quite often at locals, and so I knew him pretty well. And it was sad that I have to play a fellow Canadian. I'm not actually from Canada, but I lived there for a little while. I was in grad school, and so he was running a pretty standard Sun team. The only thing that was majorly different was that rather than a Charizard, he had a Gyarados. This was also the same team that Jeremy Adena used to get top 8, I believe, overall in this tournament. And so I believe they work together. This is a really cool team. Really great way of improving the standard Sun core, I think. And however, that being said, it does lose to Goodra. It does really, really poorly against Goodra. And so the thing is, I would have loved to face this matchup without any prep. But he had a week to prepare for me, and I had a week to prepare for him. So I played all of the matchups, played it as much as possible. Huge thanks to all the people who I had helping me with this tournament and helping me prepare for all these games. It's really, really important. Especially, by the way, just huge shout outs, especially to Rajan, because he not only helped prepare me for a lot of these games that I needed to play, but also was the person who did a lot of the work for building the team. And can't thank him enough for all the work he's put in. This specific matchup, I was really confident about. The only lead that I was really scared of was Togekiss Venusaur because he had a lot of options that he could do with it. He could yawn the Goodra and KO the Comfey with the G-Max Vine Lash, and then just it would go down. If I clicked Safeguard to that, then the Comfey would go down, and I wouldn't have a way to proc my own weakness policy and wouldn't be doing much damage. If I did proc my own weakness policy, I'd potentially go down to Yawn. He could also double the Comfey so that I wouldn't be able to... he could double the Comfey as well and just make sure that it went down. He had a lot of different options. With the Venusaur Togekiss lead, he could protect, he could click Follow Me, and it was a really volatile lead overall. I felt like I had to call what he was going to do turn 1, and thankfully game 1, that was the only lead that scared me. In everything else I felt like I was really comfortable against. So game 1, he did not lead that. He didn't bring the Togekiss, he brought the Dusclops instead. He tried to set up his Trick Room mode. I won that game really easily. Game 2, he did lead the Venusaur Togekiss, and I called turn 1 correctly. I went for Draining Kiss. He didn't click Yawn, and so I lost the Comfey right away, but I got my KO on the Venusaur, and Goodra did Goodra things, except he played really, really well. He played phenomenally to maneuver it to a Tyranitar versus Rillaboom endgame, but without Grassy Terrain. He protected on the last turn of Grassy Terrain, and now he had a fast Tyranitar against my Rillaboom. He 3-shot with Rock Slide, I 2-shot with Grassy Glide, but I didn't have priority, so he could get a flinch. And he got one flinch that he needed, and move on to game 3. In game 3, he did the same thing. This time I did say he was going to click Yawn, and so I clicked Safeguard correctly, and I managed to click. I clicked Safeguard. He clicked Yawn. It didn't do anything. This time he did play really well. It was closer than I expected. It was closer than any of my practice games when I would call correctly. So props to Sebi, but I did end up managing to pull it out thanks to Goodra just running through his team, doing too much damage, just taking too many KOs. Really, it's really good in this matchup specifically. So the next match was against Martin Gizados, another Canadian local, and also known as Star Raikou. Martin is also going to be featured on this channel. He ended up finishing, I believe, top 16 in the tournament, and I prepped for him pretty heavily too. I knew there was 2 people I could possibly face, and then I found out when I faced him, I got his team sheet, that it was a different team than what I expected to face, a different team than what he had been laddering with on Pokemon Showdown, and I was actually really happy because the team that he was laddering with had a Dracozolt on it, which was really difficult for me to deal with, and this team was not. This team had Fast Amoonguss. It was pretty clear from the focus sash that he wanted to click Airstream and Spore, and he couldn't do that because I had Safeguard on Comfey. We'd prepared for this. We just really teched heavily for this. He didn't have great ways to deal with Lapras. All of his Pokemon kind of got KO'd by Lapras except for the Porygon 2. Game 1, he led Dragapult and Amoonguss, and with the Gastrodon and Cineroar in the back, and actually played it really well, but Dragapult just went down to a G-Max Resonance plus Draining Kiss, and that was really that. He positioned his last 3 Pokemon really well. He got Pollen Puff was really annoying because he managed to heal up just as much as I managed to heal up, but at the end of the day, I had 4 Pokemon. He had 3, and he just couldn't do enough. Game 2, he had the same 4 Pokemon in the same order. He didn't click Spore this time. He just went and straight up KO'd the Comfey, but it also meant that I just got too much damage off onto the Amoonguss and the Dragapult with my Lapras, and once again managed to clean up the game with Lapras pretty easily. Martin's a great player. This was a really tough matchup for him. I was talking to him afterwards, and he was saying, like, yeah, this is just a straight up unwinnable matchup for me. And I'm inclined to agree. It's really difficult for him to deal with Lapras teams. But yeah, but he did play really well in that game, especially in game one. And then I had another week to prepare for what was hopefully going to be the last two matches I needed to win 2 games in a row. I was in top 16 in the winners bracket, and 2 wins would put me into the top 4 and into the Players' Cup. This was the most important game of Pokemon I had played in my life. It was what I was thinking. And I was playing my good friend, John Evans, who I had prepared with, I had tested with. He knew my team. I knew his team. We both had the full EV spreads. He's also going to be featured on this channel with his team. He finished top 6 overall. So he also lost in the win and in. But this is his team. Cinderace, Milotic stuff. He was always maxing the Cinderace is what I thought. This team was built around Cinderace. It had Tyranitar with a Choice Band, which is really cool. Grassy Milotic was actually a big problem because it had Helping Hand. It could boost up the damage, and it took Grassy Glides pretty well thanks to the Grassy Seed. Very, very scary team. The Clefairy with Sing could always just mess up my plans if I didn't get a Safeguard up. But it was very susceptible to Magnezone. Didn't have great interest in Magnezone. And so I had a week of prep, played a lot of games, and it really felt like a very even matchup. He could put a lot of pressure on me turn 1 very consistently. I couldn't effectively mitigate the damage from Cinderace. It could often power through me. And while he couldn't deal with Magnezone very well, he had high horsepower on the Rillaboom, and he was able to like click Max Dark with Cinderace, I thought, and chip it down with Burning Jealousy on Incineroar, which is a special attack. So he had options against it. And game 1, I actually recorded this set, but it was a little bit of an anticlimactic set. And so game 1, he led the Milotic and Cinderace and actually maxed the Milotic and got rid of my Rillaboom. I led Rillaboom Magnezone, just KO'd my Rillaboom. I think I played game 1 really poorly. I got tilted after turn 1, wilted a little bit under the pressure, and didn't prioritize. I thought the game was over. I didn't prioritize my Magnezone enough. Didn't prioritize getting the Steel Spike boost enough, and only got to +1 defense because I got a little greedy trying to damage the Milotic and lost the game. Game 2, I led the same thing. This time he led Rillaboom and Cinderace and I said there's 2 things he could. He could click Max Knuckle and high horsepower and try to KO the Magnezone right away, or he could predict that I was switching the Incineroar in, which would mean that he wouldn't KO the Magnezone right away, and then do something to react to the Incineroar switch in, such as switch the Milotic in for the Rillaboom. In fact, he did a different play to punch the Incineroar switch in. He clicked Max Knuckle and high horsepower into the my Rillaboom slot, but I protected my Rillaboom. I said I'm winning this 50-50, and he did in fact double the Rillaboom slot. And so I immediately got Max Steel Spike into the Cinderace, and then KO'd it the next turn with the with the Grassy Glide. And he high horsepower this Magnezone and got a critical hit. And my +2 Magnezone just fell right down to the Rillaboom. And that was that. So even though I called turn 1 correctly and I had the game dead to rights, he managed to take that game 2-0 me and move on to a win and in, 1 win away from Players' Cup Finals, and I had to go down to losers bracket. Yeah, so that was that. That was a little bit of an anticlimactic game. It was a lot of pressure. We're very good friends, so it was really hard to prepare for him, because we both knew each other so well, and we have a lot of the same friends who want to help us prep. But yeah, just John's a great player, and it was really, really scary to face him. Then going into the next game, I had to face Owen Wright, also known as Eclipse Owl, in the top 12 round in losers bracket, and he is also using a pretty standard Sun team, and his Sun team was a little scary because of his policy on Tyranitar. Once again, I just did Goodra stuff. He actually played game 1 and got Tyranitar with Proctor's weakness policy and almost won. He made one mistake, which was setting up Trick Room when he didn't need to, and that allowed my sleeping Incineroar to wake up in 1 turn and KO his Venusaur because it was faster than the Venusaur in Trick Room. If he hadn't set up Trick Room, I think he wins game 1 pretty easily. The second iteration of Trick Room, I think he wins game 1 pretty easily. Game 2, I managed to do good stuff, and I guess I played it better. He led the Dusclops Togekiss, which is a much more passive lead, and I just didn't have to Dynamax. I got to delay my Dynamax by a turn by just clicking Raw Blizzard and just doing damage to Togekiss without having to Dynamax, and that was really nice. Just kind of did Gudra stuff against him and won the game. Owen will also be featured on this channel to feature this team and talk about his run to top 12 of Players Cup. So make sure to check that out. Then going into top 8 losers bracket, I needed 2 more wins once again. I was facing Andrew Ding, who I had prepped for quite a bit because if I had won and he had won the top 8 matchup, the top 16 matchup in winner's side, we would face each other. And so I knew that he was one of my 2 possible opponents, assuming I would beat John. And so I had prepared for his team. He had prepared for my team. And this was also a scary team. The Chandelure and the Chandelure especially meant that I really just couldn't go with my Magnezone mode. And so I had to go with Lapras, and I had to just stop him from doing nearly enough damage during his Dynamax turns. The good thing was I didn't have a Milotic, and so I could cycle my Intimidate quite consistently. And I really did feel like it came down to turn 1, both games. He had the option he led Cinderace, Rillaboom both games. He had the option, I believe, my memory is a little hazy. I think he had the option to click Max Knuckle and Woodhammer into my Lapras and just eliminate it if I didn't switch. If I did, even though they were a -1, he could put so much pressure on my Pokemon. But I did manage to call turn 1 correctly both games and pulled it off by just cycling the Intimidates, trying to do damage mitigation, just trying to survive and hold on for dear life. I did have the option to obviously protect the Lapras if he did that and cycle Intimidates a little more, delay my turn to Dynamax a little more. And yeah, Andrew's a great player. He won a regional before all of our events got canceled, and I really thought that he was going to make it through because he just had such a cool team. The same team that Bing G Wing actually used to in this Players Cup as well, and my friend Alex beat him. So we knocked out both instances of this team from the tournament together, and yeah, this is also a really cool team. So then, finally, last but not least, the win it in. Last round, I faced Conan, who, of course, did beat me in 3 very close games. He had a sand team. I didn't get to prepare for this team because I didn't expect to face it. It took, the specific sets of results for me to be able to face this team. And I couldn't go Magnezone because he had Heat Wave on Togekiss. He didn't have Follow Me on Togekiss, which is a really cool decision because he had another redirection user. And he brought the Excadrill, the Tyranitar, the Togekiss, and the Incineroar for game 1 and 2. And game 1, he delayed his Dynamax, just stopped me from doing damage, which is the real way to deal with Lapras. Just stop it from doing damage. You don't have to waste your Dynamax. And the Dynamax when my offensive pressure is gone and my screens are running out. And so he did that really, really well. I just couldn't hold on for long enough. Game 2, I could hold on for long enough. I forced up the Dynamax a little earlier with his Excadrill, and I ended up actually winning on overall game time. Right now, I think I did have a pretty consistent win condition there with a 3-mon to 2-mon advantage in the end game, but it was just a very long, very drawn-out game, very position-heavy game. As was game 3, this time I think he played a little better. He brought Amoonguss and put pressure on me with Spore. If I had saw that coming, I think I could have done something else and brought some different Pokemon to deal with that, but I didn't. And so Amoonguss put a lot of pressure onto my team with Spore pressure, and I couldn't do enough damage. He managed to, get my Lapras a little weak. The other interesting interaction with this team was that his Incineroar and my Lapras speed tied, and so I didn't know if he was going to click Parting Shot and if I was going to go first and hit the Incineroar or go second and hit the presumably Amoonguss switch in. And so that was really, really scary for me. And I did call it wrong, I think the one time that it came up in game 3. And so, yeah, props to him. He played really well. And he actually, I'm telling people he won on time because he had a mod advantage. He was going to win the game and the overall game time ran out. So, yeah, that was the tournament. And I'm a little sad that I couldn't make it through. But I'm still really happy with my performance, really happy with the team. Here's the rental code for the team. Feel free to try it out. It's called Ash Rejects because while we were looking up information about our Pokemon, we found out that Gudra was the last Pokemon that Ash had released, and the Pokemon that Ash had released prior to that was Lapras. And so these are the 2 Pokemon that most recently Ash had released in the anime. We decided to call it Ash Rejects because they were Pokemon that he rejected from his team. And again, I can't say enough about how good this team is. This is the best way to use Lapras right now. I firmly believe that. And I hope you give it a try. I hope you consider it. I hope you incorporate these ideas from this team onto your teams in the future. And remember, we are going to have 8 of the top 16 players come on to this channel and talk about their teams. So please make sure to subscribe to this channel. Don't miss a single one of those videos. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.